You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Monday. We are back and doing it. It's a little bit late. Was not feeling that great this Monday day, but we are still doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. We'll be back to doing it every day this week. I am your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Apologies for, again, like I said, I wasn't feeling that great yesterday or today. And then I didn't do a show up for live because I was like, I need to get back home. You know, I think that's the difference with Iowa. We left the next day. Indiana, I drove by myself. And I wanted to make the trek back to Ann Arbor. And I did. So, didn't go according to plan, as it usually does not, but we are back and we are doing it. So let's talk about Indiana and everything that kind of happened in that game. A lot of it, you look at the way that game went. First half, Michigan just moves right down the field as if there's nothing standing in their way. Then Mike Hart goes down. I was with Clayton Safety, who's not normally on the sidelines. It was his first game on the sidelines. He was there down there with me, and he tagged along with me. He's a good friend from On 3, the Wolverine.com, and he was like, "Did Mike Hart?" I think a coach. I think it was Mike Hart just fell down backwards, just collapsed, and I was able to turn my camera over to, my long lens over, and I could see that he was convulsing on the ground. So that's when I sent out the tweet. I didn't name who it was specifically because I could not tell from my own eyes that it was Mike Hart, and I didn't want to say it and then have someone be like, no, it wasn't, which is just kind of the typical journalism thing. And so you could personally verify it. It is what it is, right? You report what you can verify. But obviously, that was a shocking, jarring moment. I mean, I did not feel the same for the rest of the game. Only imagine what those players feel like, what those coaches felt like. I mean, it was just an awful moment, right? Especially considering that, this was, we talked to him this week. He was a coach at Indiana. He was coming, not home, Michigan's home, but kind of in a way coming back home. It was homecoming at Indiana. He's gotten nothing but respect there. I mean, I talked to Tom Allen about him, I think last year, about Mike Hart and everything, or maybe it was this summer. I don't remember exactly. But one of the Big Ten media days, I asked him about Mike Hart. And, he just had nothing but sheer reverence for the guy. And this wasn't a situation where it was like bad blood. It was, he understood he's going home. And yet, he's coming back to his old playground, and it didn't even get through a whole quarter. That was really difficult to take. It was difficult for me to take as someone on the sidelines. Imagine what it would be like if you're one of those Michigan players, right? If you were one of those players, or even Matt Weiss, Sharon Moore, you got to call a game right after that. Heck, Jesse Minter, your defense is on the field. As soon as they start up again, you've got to have a call and be able to get through it, right? Like, that is as close to an impossible task as possible. So I see people complaining about the play calling in the first half. I mean, to me, that's probably a big part of it. Probably affects the offense more than defense. I mean, you've seen the videos, I'm sure, of Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards crying on the sidelines. You don't know if he's going to be all right. But at least now it sounds like he's going to be all right. So that's the good news, obviously. That's really good news. And it sounds like he's probably going to be out for a little while. Obviously, who knows what precipitated a seizure on the sideline, especially because it doesn't sound like this is something that he's had happen before. I mean, we've seen other coaches have that issue. Jerry Kill was having a seizure every other week when he was at Minnesota. It seems like he's gotten that a little bit more under control. Hopefully this is something that can be an isolated incident. I mean, who knows? I'm sure we'll find out more as time goes on, but it's certainly a difficult experience. And, it's, you only can imagine the feelings that those guys had, as well as I'm sure a lot of you at home. I got an insane amount of texts that I couldn't answer on the sidelines when I didn't really know anything. And, I had people, and I thank all the people who follow me that were there at the game, but I was getting plenty of messages, or not messages, but people yelling down, like, any update, while I was walking around the stadium. It happened at least 3 times. So it obviously it's great news that he's back in Ann Arbor. He's on the mend. Hopefully whatever the issue is that caused this can be figured out, and that he's going to end up being okay in the long run. Obviously could be a litany of things, and we just got to wait and see. And, the good news is he was at one of the best neurological hospitals in the country, and he's back in Ann Arbor with one of the best, healthcare systems in the country. That's all you can really ask for. So, all right, we're going to talk about the actual game here momentarily. Why I'm not at all like any level of concern that I have. It doesn't really exist after that game. I have been to Indiana enough times to know that that's how that game goes. That's why I predicted pretty close to what ended up being the final score. I predicted 35-17, ended up being 31-10. So, all right, listen, the numbers don't lie. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen SimpliSafe home security to protect their home. You don't earn the trust of that many people without doing something right. At SimpliSafe, your safety is the only thing that matters. I know because I use SimpliSafe in my own home. They protect you with cutting-edge security technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back. Here's why I love it. You never know when nefarious people are going to be about. I have lived multiple places, both places you would consider dangerous, like when I lived in Hollywood, just really, really close to, where people are currently getting shot in Hollywood and stuff like that. And I've had stuff stolen there. I lived in the middle of nowhere in the country. Leave something in my car, wake up, windows busted out. Some people come into your rural areas. I live in the middle of Ann Arbor now. Guess what? No problems here. Why? Because SimpliSafe keeps me safe. With 24/7 professional monitoring, SimpliSafe's agents call you the moment a threat is detected and will dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not home or can't be reached. SimpliSafe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and outside your home, smarter ways to detect motion that only alert you when the threat is real, and even hazard sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. Our monitoring experts use proprietary action response technology to visually confirm whether a break-in is real so you can get the highest priority police dispatch. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplisafe.com/lockedoncollege. Save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplisafe.com/lockedoncollege to learn more. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. All right, let's continue on. Let's actually talk about the game. JJ McCarthy goes for over 300 and gets 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception. A lot of great in this game. And again, mitigating the level of things that weren't. Was the interception all on him? No. Was it somewhat a little bit on him? Yeah. I mean, but tip passes, I mean, you put it in a position where that happens. Yeah, it's going to happen from time to time. So he has his first interception of the year. He was really good. I'm going to tell you, I was going to ask him if I could tell this. I'm just going to tell it. So before the game, Clayton Safey reported about this. He went up into the stands to meditate, and Clayton was just eagle-eyed. But I had a camera. I was working. I was doing things. He was, kind of more just getting a feel of everything, And he looked and he's like, I think JJ's having a hard time getting down to the field because he had went up in the stands to meditate, and he couldn't. The security would not let him back down. This is before any fans were let in the stadium. They just thought he was a fan that somehow made his way in there. So we walked over there to try to be like, yo, that's Michigan's starting quarterback. Maybe make sure he gets out onto the field. I mean, he's wearing the pregame warm-up stuff, but they weren't letting him out onto the field. And then he got out there, and I asked him, I said, have you ever been here in Indiana before? And, I love being in that stadium. I have not enjoyed my experience every time I've been there. But, I mean, it's a cool little stadium. It's one of my favorites in the Big Ten, especially considering its size is so small. Kind of amazing what it is. And he's like, yeah, this is my second time here. And I was like, wait, you didn't play. Even though I asked the question, I'm like, wait, you didn't. Let's do the math. 2020? No. So, it's like, okay, well, when have you been here before? And he says, I came here to camp. And they wouldn't give me an offer because they said I wasn't big enough to play in the Big Ten. 304 yards and 2 touchdowns later. How do you feel about that, Indiana? I think that's a pretty cool story. Anyway, that's they messed up. And it is what it is. Again, do not post that anywhere because I didn't ask him if I could share it. I'm just sharing it because it's a funny story. But I love how I treat this podcast like it's a locked, like a board behind a paywall. I know it's not. But I'm trusting y'all not to get me in trouble if I tell you things. Anyway, good day for everyone kind of involved. Yeah, the run game had its issues at times, but obviously it started out great. Felt like a game where Michigan was going to start piling on, but the officiating, we have to talk about the officiating. I mean, it was just a disaster all around. I mean, the Jalen Harrell call was ridiculous. The roughing the passer call was absurd. Like, those guys were, like, there's nothing you can do in some of those cases, right? The pass interference, I mean, it just went on and on. And it just gave Indiana as many different opportunities as possible. It was just insane. It was just ridiculous that that's how that went. So, the officiating's got to be better. And it's one of those things that you can usually tell, like, if, and I understand maybe it got a little sloppy because of the Mike Hart stuff, but when a team went into the game as the least penalized team in the country, and suddenly you've got like 9 penalties in the game, I mean, and the other team's barely getting anything, it usually speaks volumes about the officiating, right? It usually does. I mean, if they were playing against a tougher opponent, then I would understand. But Indiana's pesky. I mean, and that's what I expected, and that's what we got, right? There's a reason why I predicted that game to be kind of in a middling situation. I didn't think it was going to be as annoying of a game as it was for a half, but it was extenuating circumstances. But then Michigan went and did what it was capable of doing. Absolutely dominated. 200-something yards to like 29 yards in the second half. I don't remember the exact numbers here, but I think 29, 27, something like that, 23 was the amount of yardage that Indiana had in the second half. Amazing performance by the defensive line. I mean, unbelievable. Linebackers in secondary had their ups and downs, but certainly got better as they went along. So, I mean, it's the type of game where if you're Michigan, you're looking at the first half and saying, hey, not great, but you look at the second half and say, that's more like it. So anyone who kind of like complains about it, I mean, that's a typical Michigan win. That's what Michigan wins generally had been in the Jim Harbaugh era. It's just that I think there's a couple different things at play here. Number one, Michigan went to the college football playoff, and the expectation is for them to return, at least in Ann Arbor it is, and everyone's hoping that that's the case. So you're measuring against Ohio State, and Ohio State likes to do things a certain way. So you expect Michigan to do things a certain way, and it doesn't always work out that way. right? Georgia is a little bit more like Michigan, in a lot of ways. Georgia's not usually out there winning 52-10 or something like that. They're usually winning 35-10, things of that nature. So Michigan's really no different. Michigan was like this in 2018. Michigan was like this last year. And I think one of the interesting things about this season, with the exception of this game, in a way, but also including this game in a way, was that the Michigan has followed a similar script to last year. Every team that Michigan played in the first 3 games, Michigan dominated. Washington was a different type of domination than Hawaii, but dominated nonetheless. First Big Ten game, Michigan playing a ridiculously close game, kind of has to hang on. It was a little bit more emphatic this year, Michigan's win against Maryland, but still finished a 1-score game just like the Rutgers game did last year. Michigan goes on the road and dominates what's expected to be a really good team that they hadn't beat on the road in eons. Thought, again, Michigan was a little bit more emphatic in the win over Iowa. Now Michigan goes and plays its next opponent, a team that it should beat handily, and it's just a reversal of halves in a way. Michigan dominated the first half against Nebraska and found itself in a close game late, had to find a way to pull it out. This time it was Michigan had a close game in the first half and then just dominated from there on in. Very similar. But now Michigan really gets to get challenged. They don't have Northwestern this upcoming week like they did going into week 7 last year. They have Penn State, and that's going to be troublesome. Do I think Michigan can win it? Absolutely. We're going to find out if Michigan's legitimate or not, or if Penn State's legitimate or not. But let's continue discussing the ramifications of everything here momentarily. But I'm like stopping as if I don't have anything else to do here. BetOnline.net is your number one source for football betting info this season. Find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. I don't know if you can hear that Game of Thrones is happening upstairs. One of my favorite shows. If it makes it into the episode, it makes it into the episode. What can I say? What happens when you live in an apartment? Townhouse. That's where we're at. It's where we're at. I know this looks like it's a studio. It's not an actual studio. I am not that rich, y'all. Sports writers are not that rich. Anyway, so Michigan plays Penn State this week, and that's going to be interesting. Obviously, we're going to have a whole week of previewing that game, but Penn State has certainly improved on last year, a lot of the issues it's had. Now, the question is how much so? Penn State's been playing teams close as well, right? 17-7 over Northwestern. They let Central Michigan hang around for a bit, all after going and just absolutely destroying Auburn at Auburn. So at least you know that Penn State, now this Auburn team doesn't look like it's very good. They're 2-4, 3-3 or something like that at this point. So it's not like that Auburn team is any kind of good either. But though, I mean, it played LSU close for a second, and then LSU pulled away. Didn't really play Penn State close. Didn't play Georgia close. Managed to hang on to beat, was it Mississippi State? I don't remember what team it hung on to beat. Mizzou? It was Missouri. That's what it was. But I think certainly Auburn is not a very good football team at the moment. Penn State had to hang on to Purdue. Michigan's favored in this game. I don't know what the line is, but I know it opened at 7 or so. Michigan's got the capability to do kind of whatever it wants. And you wonder about Indiana and if there's some degree of going into that game like there is for any 18 to 22-year-old of like, yeah, all right, we should beat this team. It's a different story, right? When you're going up against a team like Penn State, and Michigan's heard constantly that it's not good enough. Gets dropped in the AP poll. And listen, I tweeted about it, about the Clemson jumping Michigan. I have a bunch of people saying, well, Clemson's played some harder games. Okay, that's fine. I'm not arguing that. I'm more slamming the media in the AP Top 25 who took a look at the last week's game and saw identical scores with identical games. Clemson playing at Boston College, not good team. Michigan playing at Indiana, not good team. And said, you know what? Yeah, impressed with Clemson after that. It's ridiculous. But that might be a silver lining, because I bet you there's a little bit of motivation inside of that building, right? To be like, wait a second. Y'all are punishing us for what? For winning? Okay. At some point, Michigan's got to get it all put together, and it hasn't done that really yet this season. The first 3 games, I think Michigan played excellent, pretty much flawlessly, but it's fool's gold considering the competition. Most of those teams aren't very good. Colorado State managed to eke out a win this last weekend. I think Hawaii eked out a win somehow a couple weeks ago. UConn is weirdly the best of the 3, and they were supposed to be the worst of the 3, but that isn't like saying UConn's any kind of good. Maryland looks like they might be decent, but they lost to Purdue. So it's going to be a big test. If Penn State gave Michigan all it could handle, and it didn't have a run game last year. Now, I think the good news is Michigan's found a pass rush. Hopefully that continues. Indiana, offensive line, they fired their offensive line coach after this game. Iowa's offensive line's clearly a little bit more shaky than usual, but they're still finding ways to do it. They've got to continue to do that, to get that pressure. If they don't get pressure, that's a bad thing. But the good news is Michigan's run defense has been incredible lately. Iowa can run the football. Indiana, probably not so much, but they're still like holding teams to just a ridiculously low number. But Michigan has to go into this game being consistent. It has to be absolutely on its P's and Q's the entire way through. And J.J. McCarthy, still leading the country in completion percentage, has to be smart with the football. Now, if you look at Penn State, and I'm going to do this very quickly, and then we're going to get out of Dodge here. And of course, I closed this window. But Penn State, their rushing defense is 5th in the country. I know that offhand. They're allowing almost just shy of 80 yards a game. So, just for posterity, the best rushing attack that has been put upon them thus far in terms of total yardage is Auburn, 119. But then the best in terms of yards per carry is Ohio, which was 3.85. Michigan's going to have to do better than that. And they're going to have to do it shorthanded because Trente Jones is out, but Carson Barnhart's considered a starter, so there you go. So that's one side of the coin. As far as pass defense, Penn State, Jim Harbaugh raved about their pass defense. Every time you watch a Penn State game, people are like, this pass defense is incredible. Now, yardage-wise, that isn't really the story that's being told. They let Purdue, who made 60 attempts, so that's not great. Purdue threw for 365 yards. A lot of teams are mostly throwing against Penn State knowing they can't run the ball. So teams are averaging, I'm not going to work out this math that fast, but they're averaging about 45 passes a game. Michigan's clearly not going to try to do that probably. But they're only completing 50%. So it's good in that sense. As far as total yardage that it is giving up, they're averaging 276 yards per game. So if you throw a lot, you're probably going to do something with it. But Michigan's going to have to find that balance. I would expect this to be another one of those low-scoring type games. I would expect the pass defense for Michigan to have its moments where it looks suspect and settle in. But maybe it goes the other way. I don't know. Iowa went the other way. They shut down Iowa, and then Iowa found something going. But it's going to be a tough game. and we'll find out on Saturday. But obviously, we're going to talk about the game all week. So it'll be interesting to see. But anyway, that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back on Tuesday. Don't know what the plan is for that. The plan is for Wednesday. I have a potential guest. Maybe we'll do Pro Football Focus and the other guest, but we haven't set any of those things in stone. Thursday mailbag, Friday preview. So that is where we're at. Thank you for watching and or listening. We will talk to you on Tuesday, probably Tuesday night, by the way. Peace.